Alrighty then, we are gonna watch a match that my friend said was good between SeaKnightofEa and PaleknightofEa. Men versus Angmar. This is version 8. And these two players have been grinding this matchup, trying to figure it out, both exploring these factions on version 8, trying to discover new strategies and so on and so forth, and should be a good one. Very interesting thing about the Angmar, SeaKnightofEa, is that he has been doing this strategy where he will rush a Black Numenorian. And the point of this Black Numenorian is that it is effective at killing a very tanky soldier of Gondor, which is very useful because the way the Men of the West player seems to want to play this matchup, from our knowledge, is in the early game, in the initial rush, the Men of the West player with a buffed soldier of Gondor can tax a massive amount of time and attention from just having one shield wall, defensive stance, rally called unit in the Angmar player's base, and the Angmar player is forced to either dedicate massive amounts of resources to try and protect his mills, or he ignores them and watches as that soldier of Gondor just destroys his entire economy. And so, if another way that Angmar will often deal with this early soldier of Gondor is a battalion of wolf riders, but for whatever reason, SeaKnightofEa prefers his Black Numenorians for this scenario, and they are very effective. They seem to move fast enough that if the soldier of Gondor just runs away from the Black Numenorian can keep up and do flank damage, and if they commit too hard to a mill, usually the Black Numenorian can, with flank bonus, kill it. So the way that the Angmar players' game plan is going to progress is basically going to have just this one Black Numenorian to try and to just defend, essentially, early, and then go into a more typical strategy with lots of thralls. There's the first thrall, try and harass with Gundabad's, lots of axe throwers, maybe Hualdar, I'm not sure what he does this game, though Morgamir is very valuable in this matchup. And the Men of the West player, we've actually been having a debate amongst ourselves in the best way that men should play this matchup. And especially on host in this Pale Knight, the Men of the West player is the one who is on host in this game. For a long time, was trying to do lots of heroes, basically building Boromir, Aragorn, Faramir every game, trying his hardest to just to win infantry wars, using his heroes to kill the heroes of the Angmar player, and that has yielded sort of mixed results. More heavily tending towards the Angmar player. But this game, we've got some creeping action, just through like the fact that these two players have played each other in this scenario has happened a million times. You saw very low direct interaction. You had a soldier of Gondor walk in here, see a Black Numenorian, and just peace out, which I think is sort of an acknowledgement of games that these two specific players have played against each other. And what PowerPoints do we have? We've got Rally Call, which has not been yet used, and War Chant, which has not yet been used. There's lots of mind games going on. Whenever you find yourself playing the same player over and over and over again, you definitely notice certain paths and certain things that you start to avoid that may not be optimal in every situation, but seems to work against that specific player. And a lot of the weird offbeat shenanigans that's happening in this early game with very low direct interaction, that's one of these things. The Men of the West player has sort of, through conversation with him, he has sort of come to the conclusion that he expands very slowly and methodically, and has kind of mind gamed himself into thinking that if he expands too quickly, the Angmar will just sort of destroy all of his outer ones, wasting his time, his resources, and so so when he attacks, he does so very methodically and basically always has a defensive force in his base. And here, this is the evolution of this matchup. So Pale Knight, the Men of the West player, went from trying desperately to win infantry wars, which almost always ended in Angmar winning through lots of long shot from Rangers and Morgamir debuff, into now trying to use Eomir with cavalry as just get as much use out of cavalry as possible, which is very tricky. It's very tricky against Angmar because they have Fellwind, because they have lots of accessible pikes, even like Frozen Land. There's lots of things that Angmar in particular have that make them very strong against cavalry. But it just seems as though, yeah, that's just such a strong move. This Black Numenorian has exerted lots of mental threat and mental pressure just by being on the board, making the Men of the West player unwilling to sort of aggress with just infantry and archers, because he felt like he would just, lose a close infantry war because that Black Numenorian is so powerful early, or at least he thinks it is. Like I said, lots of mental shenanigans going on when you play the same person over and over and over again. But we really feel, I think this is true, and I think that cavalry, a small amount of cavalry, well used, is always necessary for Men of the West, because they have the strongest cavalry play pattern in the game, I feel. Just because they have accessible, strong cavalry that has high damage to structures, good trample damage, and they have accessible horse leadership, which no other faction has accessible horse leadership except for maybe Isengard. But even that, your heroes have to level up before it becomes good. And see, he takes a decent amount of damage from trampling the pikes, but manages to kill it, and now he's just going to run these guys over. Eomir is really good in this matchup because you can spear throw the thralls. The Angmar player seems at this start, if you just look at the board state, and by board state I basically just mean if you look at the mini-map and you look at how much of the map each person has and the units that they all have currently on the board, it definitely feels like Angmar should have the advantage. He has many more resource buildings. He hasn't lost a one. I actually think that neither player has lost a resource building yet, which is very, very interesting. But like I said, this is more of a side effect of two players that are just playing a million games against each other in a row, and kind of mind gaming each other out than proper play, I should say. But the Angmar player definitely seems to have an economic edge, has more of the board in his control, many more resource structures that haven't had any direct threat put upon them. But this cavalry, and he has a second hero. Wow, he's just got lots of heroes. He's got Faramir, he has Theoden, he has Eomir. I don't really know how I feel about Faramir in this matchup. Obviously, he also can snipe Thrall Masters, which is very good in the matchup, but it seems a little excessive. I think in my that's really good. I mean, just Eomir, the spear throw, and this cavalry, he can't harass. The Angmar player is struggling really hard to harass with one group, but he's trying to do this thing where he has a Black Numenorian and a pike unit that's trying to harass, and that was the first farm kill of this game, I'm almost positive. So it's kind of a weird game. We've already got trolls out here. There's lots of tech and progression. The Angmar going for trolls and units and an elite infantry going here for level 3, trying to get Black Rangers on the board, which is actually, if you consider the fact that the Men of the West player has 3 heroes, 2 units of cavalry, and is just kind of playing defense, and 3, oh my gosh, that's Eowyn. I do not. This seems excessive. I mean, I guess since it is against Angmar, you have 2 spear throws that can target thralls, which can be really, really brutal. Get rid of the pikes, and then your cavalry can just sort of do whatever they so choose. Wow. Questionable fell wind. He's not going to get anything out of this, I don't think. These pikes are coming, but it could have been a little better timed. The Angmar player is really putting on the pressure here, and he realizes that with all of the spear throws at the Men of the West's disposal, he has to split them up, because this one blob of cavalry and cavalry heroes is basically negating any attempt that he's made to harass, and so he's trying to split his attention and attack from multiple sides. Angmar has had more successful resource structure kills this game by a lot. I mean, check out this level 2 mill that's down here. That means that he's being very successful. Hobbit summon. What are the power points like? Yeah, the Men of the West player, though he has not effectively managed to harass at all, has done such massive damage, his units have killed so many more. He's so efficiently used his cavalry and his heroes that he is winning the PowerPoint war, though he is definitely losing the economic one. 3 units of cavalry, very interesting. I think that this is maybe a little too much emphasis on the cavalry here. He has used them effectively to negate a lot of harassment, but the ability to completely negate all harassment has broken down at this point. The Angmar player, through economic superiority and map control, has managed to just send so many forces from different sides that he cannot effectively defend, and the Men of the West player is getting crippled. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 farms that are alive while building ones, and this will be the first Angmar resource building death of the game. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, that's a massive economic lead for the Angmar player, and so I think that just one of these heroes, I guess I understand why you would get Eowyn in this matchup, especially since I don't know if she has a scaler against Angmar, which I don't know if that's true, but if she does, then it's like a good thing to have in your pocket in the spear throw against thralls. But it's almost like Theoden himself might be a little bit too excessive, and if you have Theoden, I feel like the leadership that he provides your infantry is much better than just like wasting leadership on when you already have Eomer. And so now you have both of the Brothers of Gondor. The Men of the West player's strategy seems to just be buy all the heroes and defend as best as possible. And he is leading in PowerPoints, but he has not really put any pressure on, ooh, this is really good. You see this first strong damage, half health, all of these things. He's put a lot of mental pressure. Or the Men of the West player hasn't put lots of pressure on the Angmar, though the Angmar is endlessly putting pressure on. This is a strong push that the Angmar player was trying to go that has been essentially completely stuffed. Losing a battle when you blow Tainted Land is very tricky. The spear throws and that exposed ranger getting trampled. And this is a very interesting thing. I feel like the Men of the West player has, I guess you could say, camp, or has very effectively, played defense. And while he has not done any damage, really, to the economy and the heart of the Angmar player thus far, he has sort of gained advantages in other places. The fact that he has all these heroes, and the Angmar, as yet, has no heroes, means that if the Angmar player wants to get Morgamir, which is very good in the matchup and is good, or Waldar, or any of these heroes that are very good, they're going to have to somehow survive against the 5 heroes that are on the board from the Men of the West player. So he has an advantage in keeping heroes on the board by getting lots of heroes first, and he has a PowerPoint lead. So in one way, the Angmar has basically been winning the whole game if you just look at the board state, if you just look at the economies of the players versus each other and the amount of harassment that they have inflicted upon each other. Obviously, the Angmar player is ahead in that regard, but what the men player has done is build for him advantages that are a little more nuanced and a little harder to see at a glance, which is his heroes are getting experience. He has a PowerPoint lead. Well, actually, they're dead even PowerPoints wise, but the hero lead is something that cannot be overstated. Even Theoden and Faramir, which are heroes that I genuinely think are kind of a little excessive and unnecessary to get in this matchup. I think that, you know, if he had not bought Faramir and Theoden, he could have lots of, you know, Rangers and other very strong things, and especially since he has like the ability to level up with his heroes. I mean, experiencing up, you know, his Rangers with the Boromir Horn, I think could be really strong. This is a really big push. What does he have? What does the Men of the West player have that is going to save him here? He's got his heroes. 3 of them are mounted, and that's a lot of pike. Killing this level 3 farm would be a massive thing. Killing Faramir would be strong. What are we doing here? Ooh, that is dead Theoden, probably. What's going on? Not paying attention. Wow. I actually am kind of stunned. There was like a little bit of some misclicking going on or what, but that army just got murked. A blight is coming out. Dunedain summon. Wow, the pace of this game is actually insane as far as how rapidly these guys are getting power points. Like, there's a lot of action, even though as of yet I think the Men of the West player has like 3, maybe 4 mill kills, and the Angmar I think has killed a dozen or more. But we go back to the previous point, which is that the Angmar seems to be winning as far as he has a massive economy lead and control of the map. But the Men of the West player has that kind of hidden X factor, for lack of a better word, of his heroes are leveling, and heroes that have lots of experience can do a disproportionate amount of work. Very interesting, very interesting. Hobbit summon.
I am the Fist of Angmar.
Lots of units. Trying to have a nice mix of one weak pike, one troll, one black Numenorian. I mean, the thing about this is that's really killing him, and I wonder if Waldar's leadership would make it so that the Thrall Masters don't die in one hit from a spear throw. But having Éowyn and Éomer, which, where are they? We've still got Theoden. We've got Éomer level 7. Éowyn's level 6. He almost has Glorious Charge. He can level up. All of his Rangers from here on out should just have Long Shot for free, because he has, I think, Boromir. Is Boromir dead? Is Boromir? Where is Boromir? Oh, I heard Waldar. So we have Waldar. We have Morgamir on the map for the Angmar player. I almost feel like he needs the Witch King of Roget. Like, he's the biggest. If you stop and you think about what do these players have to do to win this game, it's kind of tricky, because the game is like pretty out of reach for both players right now. They both have advantages, but they both don't have tangible threat to end the game. For the Men of the West player, he could end with potentially, if the Angmar player puts his misplays or attacks and doesn't get enough out of it, the Men of the West player is getting to a point where he has the threat of a Glorious Charge on the fort. Now that he has Theoden, all of these cavalry heroes, that's very scary. I mean, that's something which can be countered by Snowbind. Felwyn just to kill Éomer. Éomer is dead for the first time. I think that's the first hero loss of the game for the Men of the West player, which is saying something. This Glorious Charge standing here is kind of interesting. I think they're dying. Yeah, the Angmar player just is really tired of dealing with this cavalry. And it has done a lot of work defensively, but offensively hasn't really... He hasn't gotten as many mill kills with this force of cavalry as you would think that he could have, or even maybe should have, for how long that these units of Knights of Gondor have been alive for this game. You know, the Angmar player, SeaKnightofEa, I think is just doing an exceptional job at multitasking and having forces across the board, killing these rangers while he's harassing. There's Boromir. Does he have the ability to level up? Yeah, he does. I think there's almost, at this point in the game, I think there's almost an overfocus from the Men of the West player on like using these cavalry heroes, and I think that having them in your back pocket, having them as a threat, you know, just the fact that they're on the board means that the Angmar player has to continue to mix pikes in, has to continually think about how he uses Felwind, think about just like even if the Men of the West player isn't like perfectly using cavalry, the fact that they're on the board means something. Ooh, we have upgrades. I like this. I like this a lot from the Men of the West player. I think that, essentially, to try and be a little more concise, I think that what Pale Knight, the Men of the West player, needs to do to win this game is to kind of just use the cavalry as a mental pressure. You use it defensively to punish things, but to not really spend too much time on it. What I would like to see from him is I would like to see a strong ground force. Instead of 3 units of cavalry, maybe just 2 with his leaders, and you know, maybe not replacing having so much CP in all of these horse heroes when I feel like he really only needs Theoden at this point. The spear throws are good, yes, and again, maybe Eowyn is really good against the Witch King. I actually have no idea. But like this, he's just losing. Look at that. He's getting to a point in the game where the Angmar has so successfully built his entire like unit mix around dealing with this cavalry that if he just had like 2 or 3 of these tower guard with a nice substantial force of rangers that have long shot, that have leadership from Faramir, that, you know, a Boromir horn into long shot with lots of spear throw, I think would just really would be something that is almost impossible for the Angmar player to deal with if he had transitioned to that sooner. But here we are, still kind of all units on the board except for heroes have kind of slowly been killed. Morgamir and Hwaldar are doing work. The fact that he's managed to get we've got level 4 on Hwaldar, we've got level 4 on Morgamir, we've got the debuff, and we've got leadership. That's so massive how much these fights have changed now that he has this debuff, now that he has this leadership. And look how much CP he has, for almost all of that CP being filled up by these heroes. So he's sort of stuck insofar as he can't put that many units on the board because so much of his command points are sunk into heroes. So if he doesn't get a lot of use out of these heroes, then he's really just gonna die a slow death, I feel like. And I think that you have all of these level up abilities. You have Theoden's, you have Boromir, you have Faramir. I think there's a massive mistake in not just getting a crap ton of rangers out here, because I think that, ooh, this is big. If Boromir dies, Boromir is dead. Huge mistake. Why is he chasing after this force with the small thing? I can tell you why, because he's spending most of his mental energies using this unit of cavalry, using this force of cavalry, and he's gotten a lot out of it. But this is a very dangerous and precarious situation for the Men of the West player right here, and this is sunken money into more cavalry. I really think that if he could just keep 3, maybe 4 units, 3 units of rangers on the board, where you automatically level them up with all of your free spells, you have just this accessible long shot. Oh man, the Angmar player is doing lots of work. We've got Avalanche. He killed his own army. That's crazy. That's so unfortunate. He did a little bit of friendly fire that he wasn't expecting. getting that kill on Morgamir is actually very large. Look at this lead. Look at this economic lead that the Angmar player, he's cash floating so hard. He's poisoning the threat. I think that the Angmar player needs to protect his Morgamir a little bit better, realize that Avalanche does some friendly fire damage, and I think that Witch King is something that he would very much like in this matchup, maybe some upgrades. I wish that he, with the amount of money that he has, the fact that he does not have a Dark Iron Forge is a massive mistake. Yeah, this force could definitely kill the Men of the West player. This could be it, except for the Army of the Dead comes out. These guys are just locked in as much power points as they have. It's crazy how even the game is in that regard. But oh no, what do we have here? We have what was I saying? So the Angmar player has made this push. This is going to be glorious charge on the fort. Is he going to get it? What's going to happen here? Because the Angmar player is massively ahead right here, but this fort kill could be massive. Blight, that's a mistake. Oh, you need Snowbind. Snowbind, what? You have the... There's 5. Oh my gosh, that was so close. I honestly... He didn't have 5 power points for Snowbind, and I think that just being off-host, if he had gone for Snowbind right there, I think that I don't think it would have been possible for him to get it, but I think that there's a massive mistake from the Angmar player to leave himself so open in that situation. You know that he has glorious charge. You know that he's been keeping this cavalry alive. You gotta at least get I forget what the name of the upgrade is, but you have to get the upgrade for the fortress where you do melee damage, and get some and just upgrade the fort to be defensive with this insane amount of money that he has. And look at the board state. Look at all of these mills. Oh, if he keeps this, can he keep this builder alive? I don't know how many builders the Angmar player has. This is very intense. We've just got the heroes here, and we've got these. Oh, and he gets the builder. Oh my goodness, that's massive. Wow. And look at this, what do we got? And the Angmar player has opted to kill farms. The Men of the West player has 1 farm, building a second one level 3 farm, building one here. And other than that, has no other farms on the board. This one. Look at how little resources the Angmar player, or the Men of the West player has. So even though the Angmar player doesn't have a fort here, left himself open to that glorious charge push, this game is still anybody's guess. Both players have very distinct advantages. Angmar has the economy. Does he have a builder? Oh, here's the fort already. Such a precarious spot. If he can manage to get this thing up, that would be massive. But this summon is about to expire. I think that the Angmar player has this game very handily. As long as he can get this fortress up, I still think that he's favored to win, just for how much like rebuilding the Men of the West player has. Not only is it money that he needs to reinvest to build things out, but he has a decent amount. But there's lots of time. Like people don't think about how much of a resource time itself is in this game. This amount of pressure, this is desperation. So what the Angmar player is trying to do here is he's trying desperately to say, come and deal with this force. Don't explore the map. Play defense. Oh my goodness, if he finds this. Oh, he sees a mill here. Yes, this force to try and defend the fortress. This is very interesting. Oh, it's so close. I think that if this thing comes up, we've got another 15 power point. Oh my goodness gracious. This is horrifying. This is horrifying. Ooh. Damn. Aelin is nasty. Oh, it's up. That's awesome. It's kind of really interesting to have the Angmar fort be right here too, because it definitely inhibits the ability for the Men of the West player to come up. I feel like his builder was just forward, building mines. How much money do you have, Angmar? You need to be upgrading this fortress. He needs some wolf dens. He has to create a defensive barrier here, because this is actually so massively. It could be an incredible place for this replacement fortress to be right here, because it makes it so that the Men of the West player can't, kind of ever enter here. But that glorious charge is coming up again. You know that your fortress can die in an instant if you don't have Snowbind, if you don't have upgrades on your fortress. You need to get that fortress upgraded. I still think that the Angmar player has massive amount of threat and still has map control, though. The Men of the West player genuinely has more farms right now than I think he has had this entire game. Like, that fort kill gave him so much room to breathe and so much room to reestablish himself on the map. And he's managed to keep the Men of the West player has managed to keep his heroes alive basically this whole game, and has managed to exert a lot of pressure with them and defend very effectively. So if he can get a massive amount of ground troops on the board as well here, it's really strong. And he's again reinvested in getting some more Rohirrim on the map. Come on, man! He's just queuing up massive amounts of troops. Just endless amounts of pike. I mean, I've criticized the Men of the West player here for not. Oh my goodness! Come on, you gotta snowbind this or something. You gotta upgrade this fort. This is insane. This is gonna be another glorious charge. You have the tools at your disposal to defend this. You have 15 power points. Come on. I think that if this fort goes down, then I think that the Men of the West player has it 100%. Oh, yep. There's Snowbind. Okay. Will it be enough? Will it be enough? Kill Eowyn. Kill Eowyn. Ooh, I hope this game keeps going. This is very exciting. Morgamir. That's strong, but you gotta get some wolf dens. Just the wolf dens. Just the wolves creating a massive amount of collision, making it harder for the enemy cavalry to clump on it. This fortress is gone. Oh, what a huge blunder from the Angmar player. Look at all these resources. I don't understand why there has been absolutely zero effort. Oh, wow, this game just seems very much in hand, because the first time that the Men of the West player got a fortress kill, the Angmar was in complete control of the board, and so even though he had no fortress, he still had impetus, he still had much more effective economy. But in the time that it took for the Angmar player to rebuild that fortress, the Men of the West was spending his time wisely, still employing shenanigans with his cavalry, regaining map control, flooding the map with farms in a way that he has not this entire game. And now that the second fort is down, Angmar has no advantage, has no second place prize, has nothing, has no advantage over the Men of the West player. This game is entirely in the Men of the West player's hands, and I expect this to be the end. So exciting. I criticized Pale Knight for not, because I think that his use of cavalry this game was excellent, and look at the unit mix here. Look at what the Angmar has been forced to build this entire game, which is just pikes on pikes on pikes on pikes, and that has made it. And I don't think that he fully capitalized on the unit mix that he forced his opponent onto, because I think that just with 2 units of Rohirrim and Glorious Charge, he could have threatened the fort to some degree, to at least, force the Angmar player to burn cash, which he never did anyway. And then he could have used infantry to overwhelm him. But he managed to win with this heavy cavalry playstyle anyway, which against Angmar is so impressive. And as far as what the Angmar player could have done a little bit better is, honestly, he had the game in the bag. He just needed to be conscientious of the fact that you have Theoden, he has Glorious Charge, he has upgraded cavalry, he's been playing he's been leaning on cavalry this entire game. You have to know that Glorious Charge is an option, and you have to upgrade that fortress. You have to make it a big deal for him to kill skill your fort. Like, the fact that he was able to walk in after basically having his entire economy and base eviscerated, losing Boromir and Faramir, the fact that he was able to walk in the base of the Angmar player with essentially like two units of cavalry. I know it was more than that, but they were wounded, and kill that fortress in the first place is insane. And then after that happens, you have the economy, you have this really useful replacement forward fortress placement, and you fail to upgrade the fortress. I forget what it is, but the one upgrade that inflicts damage to enemy units in melee range. That's all you need. The spikes, that I think, right? Yeah, the spikes. That by itself would have done massive work in keeping your fortress alive. And not to mention, with this forward fort, how good would Witch King Sanctum be? How strong would ice walls have been here? To be able to Witch King Sanctum your opponent's base would just be so strong. And the fact that he kind of got stuck in this play pattern loop of trying to flood the map and try to harass from all sides was his downfall, was not adjusting to the game state as it was the Angmar player's great downfall. I think he played excellently, and I think that he should have won. But the Men of the West player, being ever intelligent, being ever resourceful and tenacious, that was impressive use of cavalry. But I think that surely this is the game that he's trying to get this fortress up. It's too late. It is too late, my friend. Look at just this oppressive amount of Men of the West units. He has every advantage that PaleknightofEa seized in this game. He made ample work of. This was very impressive play from the Men of the West player, because he was being put under tremendous pressure and managed to earthquake to end the game. Wonderful. Yeah, just kudos to both players. I think that was pretty well played, but especially by the Men of the West player. Fantastic. Like, just great use of cavalry, and an interesting Men of the West Angmar. All right, see you soon.